There comes a moment in life when we suddenly realize how much of our time, our energy, and even our happiness has been quietly handed over to the expectations of others. From childhood, many of us are shaped by what family, society, or culture tells us we should be. We measure our worth by the approval we receive, the recognition we chase, or the roles we play to satisfy the demands around us. Yet deep inside, there lingers a quiet voice, asking whether this life truly belongs to us, or if we are merely living as shadows in someone else's dream. The Buddha's teachings remind us that true freedom does not lie in pleasing the world, but in coming home to ourselves. When we constantly seek validation, we bind our hearts with invisible chains. The Dharma invites us to pause, to look deeply, and to see that living for others at the cost of our own authenticity only leads to suffering. Real compassion begins not with self-denial, but with self-understanding. Only when we honor our own path can we walk with clarity, love, and genuine presence alongside others. This reflection is not an encouragement to reject or neglect our relationships. It is a gentle invitation to see the difference between love and attachment, between care and control, between living authentically and merely surviving in others' expectations. To stop living for others is not to become selfish, but to rediscover the freedom of being fully alive, rooted in mindfulness and guided by wisdom. In today's journey on Buddha's wisdom journey, let us explore together how Buddhist wisdom helps us loosen the grip of fear and approval, and how we can find the courage to live with authenticity, compassion, and freedom. Many of us grow up with an unspoken belief that our lives must revolve around the expectations of others. From a young age, we learn to please our parents with grades, to smile even when tired just to keep harmony with friends, and to wear a polite mask in front of society. Over time, we forget one essential truth. We are no longer living for ourselves. We are merely existing under the weight of judgments, praise, and demands from others. Sometimes, in the stillness of night, a quiet question arises in the heart. Am I truly happy? And that question shakes us deeply, because the answer often comes as silence or a weary smile. The desire for approval isn't wrong. We are, after all, beings connected to family, friends, and community. But when that desire becomes a burden, when our very sense of self is shaped by others' expectations, we cut ourselves off from the voice of our own soul. Buddhism sees this subtle bondage clearly. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from clinging to an image of who we must be, clinging to praise or criticism, clinging to how others perceive us. When we exhaust ourselves trying to please everyone, we surrender control of our lives to the fickle winds of the world. And the world is impermanent. Today it praises, tomorrow it condemns. Today it lifts us up, tomorrow it forgets. To base our happiness on such shifting sands is like building a house in the middle of a storm. Some people spend their whole lives trying to fulfill filial duty exactly as their parents expect, only to lose their own dreams along the way. Others chase after friends' or colleagues' approval, only to discover, in the quiet of night, that they've lost their direction. Still others live for the applause of society, yet their hearts remain empty, restless, and longing. So the question remains, can we really be happy living like this? True happiness cannot come from pleasing everyone. It can only arise when we return to ourselves, when we understand who we are, and when we live authentically. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to release the burden of living for others. This doesn't mean we become selfish or careless. Rather, it means living truthfully, living wholeheartedly with ourselves. Because only then can we genuinely offer compassion and understanding to others. When we turn inward, we realize parents don't truly need a perfect child who meets every social standard. They want a child who lives joyfully, peacefully, and lovingly. Friends don't need us to fake a smile all the time. They long for sincerity. Society doesn't need us to wear a glittering mask. It needs people who live with integrity, kindness, and responsibility. Letting go of the compulsion to satisfy everyone is not about turning away from the world. It is the beginning of a deeper journey. The journey of coming home. Coming home to our inner voice, to the simple joy found in each breath, each step, and each genuine moment of being alive. There is a Buddhist story of a young man who once asked a teacher, "How should I live so that everyone will love me?" The teacher smiled and replied, "You could spend your whole life pleasing one person and still displease another. You could sacrifice everything for a perfect image and still be judged. You cannot hold everyone's heart, so why not first learn to hold your own?" That is the essence. If we can hold our own heart, we will no longer drown in the expectations of the world. We will live in freedom, and that freedom is true happiness. Only when we release the burden of living for others can we truly live for love. Without the constant weight of expectations, joy naturally flows outward. Without the fear of judgment, we dare to live kindly, honestly, and fully for the peace of all beings. And this is the wisdom Buddhism offers. Don't search for happiness in the eyes of others. Find it within your own heart. Don't chase after the shifting voices of the world. Return to the stillness of your breath. Only when you are truly yourself can you live a life of freedom, joy, and peace, and share that peace with everyone around you. Recognizing the chains of living for others. There is a quiet truth that shapes many of our lives. Most of the decisions we make, big or small, are influenced, sometimes even controlled, by the expectations of others. From choosing a career, to shaping the way we live, even to the little preferences of daily life, a question often arises in our minds. What will people think? Will they approve? Will my parents be proud? Will society accept me? At first glance, this seems natural. We are social beings. We live in families, communities, societies. But when this influence becomes a chain, binding every choice we make, we lose our inner freedom. Life no longer feels like a journey of discovering ourselves, but instead becomes a race to meet the demands of the outside world. The first consequence, losing ourselves. When every decision is made based on what others expect, we eventually stop hearing the voice within. We forget what we truly love, what we dream of, what our hearts yearn for. A young person may abandon a passion for art just to follow the secure path chosen by parents. An adult may bury the longing for freedom just to fit the social image of success. Slowly, we stop being who we really are and become only an actor playing a role written by others. The second consequence, constant stress and unease. Living for others' approval means living in a suit of armor that never fits. Today, we try to satisfy our parents. Tomorrow, we worry about pleasing our colleagues. The next day we struggle to maintain a flawless image for society. It is a cycle that never ends, and the harder we try, the more exhausted we feel. Because people's opinions and the world itself are impermanent. Praise and blame, honor and neglect, they shift as quickly as the wind. The third consequence: loss of freedom, loss of happiness. A life shaped by external control is like a bird trapping itself in a golden cage. From the outside, it may appear beautiful, even admirable, but inside, the spirit feels suffocated. Others may call it success, yet within, there is only emptiness and unrest. The cost of living to please everyone else is losing our freedom, and with it, our chance at true happiness. In Buddhism, this is called attachment. The Buddha described it as clinging to fame, image, and others' perceptions. We hold tightly to the identity we want the world to see, and we suffer when that image is not affirmed. We attach to praise and fear criticism, forgetting that both are fleeting, without real substance. The root of suffering, the Buddha taught, does not lie in the world but in our minds, in the way we cling and depend on external validation, instead of recognizing our own inner worth. When we are bound by the chase for approval, we become slaves to what can never last. And slavery to impermanence can only bring anxiety and sorrow. Learning to see and let go. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. When we honestly look at our own lives, we may notice, how many decisions have I made only to please others? How many dreams have I buried out of fear of judgment? How many times have I silenced my heart just to avoid criticism? To see this truth is already a form of awakening. And once we see it clearly, we begin to sense how tired the heart has become under the weight of expectations. That recognition gives us the courage to let go. Letting go does not mean rejecting or ignoring others. It means living truthfully. When we live authentically, our love becomes real, our contributions wholehearted, and our happiness rooted in something unshakable. Returning to ourselves, the doorway to freedom. The freedom that Buddhism points to is not the freedom to do whatever we please, but the freedom from bondage, from attachment, from the fear of praise and blame. It is the inner state where we can smile at others' judgments, because we know our true worth is not found in their eyes, but in the stillness of our own heart. When we come home to ourselves, happiness reveals itself in the simplest things, in each breath, in each mindful step, in each moment of being real. We no longer need to perform, no longer need to carry the burden of pretense. From that authenticity, kindness, compassion, and wisdom naturally shine, reaching others more deeply than any perfect image ever could. A message for you. Ask yourself, who am I living for? Whose expectations am I chasing? And when all the outside eyes turn away, what remains within me? If your answer brings you a heavy silence, perhaps this is the moment to begin a new journey, the journey of returning home. To live true to yourself is not to abandon the world, but to find the root of happiness. And from that rootedness, you can give the world something far greater than an image of perfection. You can give the gift of an authentic presence, a free spirit, and a heart filled with love. My friend, when the Buddha spoke of suffering, dukkha, he wasn't only pointing to the obvious pains of life like sickness, loss, or death. He was also pointing to a more subtle kind of suffering that hides deep in the human heart. At the root of it all are the three poisons: craving, aversion, and ignorance. And one form of craving that almost everyone struggles with is the craving for recognition, From childhood, many of us are taught to live in ways that please others, to behave so we'll be praised, to hide our real feelings so we won't upset anyone, to choose a safe path because it keeps our parents or society satisfied. Slowly, without even realizing it, we begin to shape our lives around approval. But the more we chase recognition, the further we drift from the quiet peace that is already within us. The Buddha once reminded us, no one can please everyone. Simple words, but they carry the weight of great wisdom. Even the enlightened one, who embodied limitless compassion and wisdom, faced criticism, resistance, and slander. If even the Buddha could not please the world, how could we, ordinary human beings, ever hope to? When we place our happiness in the eyes of others, we step into an invisible prison. Every compliment becomes a chain that ties us down. Every criticism cuts us like a knife. Our sense of self grows fragile, constantly shaken by the ever-changing opinions around us. This is the essence of dukkha, not the suffering of lacking material things, but the suffering of losing inner freedom. We believe that recognition will bring happiness, but that happiness is fleeting, like a soap bubble, shining for a moment, then gone. When people praise us, we feel uplifted. When they turn away, we collapse. This cycle keeps us trapped in endless dissatisfaction. The Dharma calls us back to ourselves. True worth is not found in another's approval. It lives in awareness, in the clarity of our own mind. When we look deeply into suffering, we stop blaming the world and begin to see its root. Our own craving, aversion, and ignorance. Recognition seeking is nothing but craving in disguise. The craving for praise, for admiration, for acceptance. And craving never ends. It always asks for more. Think back. How many times have you received praise, felt happy for a while, and then soon found yourself hungry for more? That is the nature of craving. Never satisfied, always restless. The Buddha's path does not ask us to suppress desire with force, but to see it clearly. When you truly see that recognition is an illusion, you no longer cling to it. Slowly, the need to be validated loses its grip. Then your heart becomes lighter, freer, no longer swayed by praise or blame. Imagine a day where you no longer feel pressured to please anyone. You still live kindly, you still do what is good, but you are no longer imprisoned by the fear of judgment. What you do comes from love and wisdom, not from fear. That is true freedom, a freedom no wealth or power can buy. And here is the paradox. When you stop chasing recognition, people naturally respect you. They sense a strength and peace within you that is unshakable. Yet by then, that respect no longer matters, because you have already found real peace within yourself. The Buddha's message is timeless. Look deeply into the nature of suffering, so that suffering no longer controls you. One of the most practical ways to do this is to step out of the endless race for recognition and return to the truth of your own being. You can start right now. Each time you act, pause and ask yourself, am I doing this to be accepted, or because it truly feels right in my heart? That simple question can become a lantern on your path, guiding you out of the shadows of attachment and into the light of freedom. My friend, in today's world, one of the most silent yet common forms of suffering is comparison. We compare ourselves with friends, co-workers, neighbors, even strangers we see online. Some of us look at others and feel inferior. Others measure themselves to feel superior. But whether we feel less than or greater than, Comparison always traps us in a cycle that never ends. In the Dharma, the Buddha often reminded us, each being has their own karma, their own path, their own unique conditions. No two journeys are the same. No one can walk another's road. When we compare our lives with others, what we are really doing is rejecting the precious uniqueness of our own existence. Think of it this way. The lotus blooms in muddy water and stays pure, while the rose blossoms in the garden with radiant colors. Each has its own conditions, its own purpose, its own beauty. Neither is higher, neither is lower. Problems only arise when we say, the lotus should be red like the rose, or the rose should be pure like the lotus. The moment comparison arises, suffering follows. This is why mindfulness is such a healing practice. Each time you notice yourself scrolling through social media and feeling envy or discontent, pause. Breathe. Name what you feel. This is comparison. This is insecurity. Once you recognize it, you are no longer completely trapped in it. Mindfulness is like a lamp. It lights up what is happening so you don't have to be carried away by it. The truth is, comparison steals our inner freedom. The moment we compare, we hand over the keys to our happiness. When others succeed, we feel uneasy. When they fail, we feel relief. But none of these emotions bring lasting peace because they don't arise from true joy. Only when we let go of comparison can we live fully on our own path. There's a story. A little fish was always sad because it couldn't fly like the birds. And a bird was jealous because it couldn't dive deep like the fish. Both forgot the simple miracle of their own nature. The fish was born to swim in the ocean. The bird was born to soar in the sky. Only when each accepted themselves did happiness appear. You are the same. Your journey is not to prove yourself to the world, but to awaken wisdom and compassion within. When you truly see this, the need to compare fades. The only meaningful comparison left is with yourself. Am I more mindful today than yesterday? Is my heart more peaceful than before? That is the progress that matters. Letting go of comparison does not mean you stop growing. It means you live with more freedom in each step you take. Without being pulled into the gaze of others, you can walk your own path with peace. Then life is no longer a competition, but a journey of learning, of loving, of awakening. So each time the mind begins to compare, come back to your breath and gently remind yourself, I am walking my own path. I don't need to be like anyone else. That simple reminder can be a seed of liberation, nourishing confidence and peace. In the end, the deepest wisdom is this. We don't need to be better than anyone, nor less than anyone. We only need to be ourselves, awake and free. And in that moment, you will rediscover freedom. The freedom from comparison. The freedom to live as who you truly are. My friend, on this journey of life, perhaps nothing exhausts us more than the endless effort to please others. We fear disappointing our parents, upsetting our friends, or being judged by society. And when we inevitably fall short of their expectations, we often turn inward with blame, guilt, and self-criticism. This cycle of never good enough slowly eats away at our joy and the peace within our hearts. In the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching on compassion is not limited to others. It must begin with ourselves. If we cannot offer kindness and acceptance to our own being, then the love we extend outward will be fragile. conditional, and easily broken. Practicing self-compassion is not self-indulgence. It is the foundation for healing our wounds and opening our hearts wide enough to embrace others. The first step is to stop blaming yourself. When you do something that doesn't meet another's expectations, pause and ask, did I act with sincerity? Did I do my best with the wisdom I had at that moment? If the answer is yes, then let go of the guilt. No one on earth can satisfy every demand placed upon them. The harder we try to please everyone, the more we lose ourselves. The second step is to learn to love and accept yourself as you are right now. This does not mean giving up on growth, but rather approaching yourself with understanding and gentleness. You have unique strengths, and you also have limitations. Together, these make you whole and worthy of compassion. When you look at yourself with kindness, you release the tight grip of self-judgment, and from that softness comes the energy to grow in a healthy way. Here is a simple practice. Each morning when you wake, before diving into the rush of the day, place your hand over your heart and whisper, "Today, I allow myself to simply be me. I am worthy of love." At first it may feel strange, but over time this gentle reminder will sink deep into your being, becoming a wellspring of strength and healing. The truth is clear. Only when we are free within ourselves can we offer genuine love to others. If your life is ruled by fear and the constant pressure to please, then your love will always carry tension and anxiety. But when you are grounded in self-acceptance, the love you give flows freely, without conditions, like a river that never runs dry. A flower does not need to strive to be another flower. It simply blooms in its own way, and that blooming is already a gift to the world. You are the same. When you live with self-compassion, your very presence becomes a source of healing for those around you. So the next time you catch yourself blaming or criticizing yourself for not making others happy, pause. Take a deep breath, smile softly to yourself, and remember, you are worthy of love, not because you are perfect, but because you are alive, present, and walking this path of growth and awakening. And here is the beautiful paradox. When you truly embrace yourself with compassion, the outer world feels lighter. Others may still praise or criticize, but you are no longer shaken. Rooted in the love you have cultivated for yourself, the love you share with the world becomes more genuine, steady, and boundless than ever before. Living authentically, in a world full of expectations, where everyone seems to carry a standard to measure against and a mask to hide their own fragility, living authentically becomes one of the greatest challenges. From childhood, we're taught to please, to satisfy parents, teachers, friends, and later, society at large. Step by step, we unconsciously learn to shape our lives around other people's opinions instead of listening to the quiet voice within. But the more we chase outer approval, the further we drift from our own essence. And sooner or later, that inner emptiness begins to weigh us down. The Buddha taught that liberation doesn't come from becoming a polished version of yourself that the world applauds. True freedom arises when you return to living from your genuine self, without pretending, without hiding, without adding or subtracting anything. To be authentic doesn't mean to be selfish, nor to ignore the feelings of others. Rather, it's a balance. Respecting yourself while also listening with compassion to those around you. When you live authentically, you no longer need to perform, no longer need to wear masks just to be accepted. You simply are, natural, simple, and yet full of quiet strength. Think about it. How many times have you said yes while your heart whispered no? How often have you smiled to hide your exhaustion only because you feared disappointing someone? How many times have you reshaped your words, your behavior, your choices just to fit in? Each time, a piece of your true self was left behind. Slowly, you lose your freedom, until one day you realize you've been living as a stranger in your own life. To live authentically requires courage. Courage to face yourself honestly and accept all that you are, the light and the shadow. Courage to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. Courage to walk your own path, even when it looks different from the crowd. And it also requires wisdom. The wisdom to know the difference between authenticity and selfishness. The Buddha pointed out that the root of suffering lies in clinging. When we cling to an image of a perfect self in other people's eyes, we make ourselves prisoners. But when we release that heavy burden, we reclaim our freedom. The freedom to act from inner values like compassion, sincerity, and clarity. The freedom to choose what's right instead of what's easy. The freedom to live meaningfully rather than merely existing to be accepted. An authentic person radiates a quiet kind of energy, not the energy of showmanship or control, but a calm presence that feels trustworthy, grounding, and inspiring. It's a beauty that doesn't come from appearance or performance, but from natural being. And when you live true to yourself, you don't just heal your own heart. You awaken others to the courage of living true to theirs. Remember this, respecting others does not mean abandoning yourself. Living among people requires care, kindness, and sensitivity. But all of it must begin from the solid ground of honesty with yourself. A tree can only stretch wide and offer shade if its roots reach deep into the earth. In the same way, you can only give lasting value to the world when you stand firm in your own truth. The Buddha's path of liberation is not about chasing approval. It is about coming home to the truth within you. It is a journey of courage, of return, of remembering. And in that return lies true freedom, not a freedom handed to you by the world, but one that blossoms quietly in the depth of your own heart. Conclusion. Living for yourself is the greatest freedom. My friend, as we reach the end of this reflection, perhaps you've already sensed a simple yet profound truth. To stop living for others is to break free from the chains of expectations and comparisons. Every time we sacrifice our inner truth in order to seek approval, we unknowingly bind our hearts with invisible ropes. Over time, those ropes grow heavier and heavier, until our spirit feels weighed down by constant fatigue and restlessness. But you were not born to be a shadow of someone else. You came into this life with a unique path, a unique seed, a unique light that no one can replace. When you try to live according to someone else's design, you dim your own radiance. Yet when you live guided by wisdom and compassion, you shine naturally, without needing to compete, without needing to compare, and without needing to prove anything. To live authentically does not mean being selfish, nor does it mean ignoring those around you. It is about balance, respecting others while not abandoning yourself. This is the spirit of the Dharma, to release clinging, to live with compassion and clarity, and to discover true freedom in every breath, every choice, every step. Ask yourself, how many decisions have you made simply to please others? How many times have you said yes while your heart was crying out no? How many times have you forced a smile to hide your exhaustion, just to avoid disappointing someone? And if you continue this way, When will you finally live as your true self? You deserve a life of freedom. A life where your choices are rooted in inner values rather than external pressures. A life not weighed down by endless comparisons, but uplifted by wisdom, kindness, and peace. Start small. Tomorrow, just for one day, make one decision for yourself. Not to please, not to impress, not to chase approval, but simply because it aligns with your heart. Then notice the feeling that arises. You may be surprised. Freedom doesn't always come from changing the whole world, but from the courage to change how you choose in a single moment. And here's the beauty of it. When you live true to yourself, others around you feel it. They sense your steadiness, your sincerity, your calm presence. That in itself becomes a source of inspiration. You don't need to play a role to inspire anyone. Your authentic freedom is already a gift to the world. There's an old saying, to know others is intelligence, to know yourself is wisdom. But if you know yourself and still don't dare to live that truth, wisdom remains locked away. Only when you choose to live authentically, to stand firmly in your own values, does wisdom transform into a light that guides you. And through that light, you step fully onto the path of liberation the Buddha spoke of. And so, my friend, here is the heart of today's message. When you live with wisdom and compassion, you become your true self. And that is the greatest freedom. If today's reflection has touched something deep within you, I invite you to try this simple experiment. Tomorrow, let your heart guide at least one decision. Don't do it for your parents, for your friends, or for society's gaze. Do it for the sake of your own peace, for your own authenticity. Then, feel the relief and lightness it brings. And when you've experienced it, I would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What expectations most often make you feel trapped? Have you ever made a decision solely for yourself? And how did it feel? If you could choose one way to live more authentically tomorrow, where would you begin? Your stories, your reflections, and your insights won't just connect us. They will inspire countless others who may be struggling under the same weight of expectations. And if this message has brought you comfort or clarity, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Every subscription is more than just a number. It's a way for us to grow this circle of peace, wisdom, and compassion together. Remember, even a single comment, a small reflection from you, could be the spark that lights someone else's path out of comparison and into freedom. So let us plant this seed of freedom today and allow it to bloom, not only in your heart, but in the hearts of all who walk this journey with us.